from Q6FSA. This video is going to take you through a worked example of using the platform within manufacturing and engineering scenario. And it's based primarily around the migration of a number of systems and connecting them to SAP. So let's get started. The first thing that we do here is we set up the actual the project itself, and we've configured this one as in the style of Scale Agile. So we have, as you can see, value streams, large solutions, programs, and teams, and we've laid the structure across that. So we have effectively value stream, which is migrating to SAP, and a number of roles that basically participate at that level. We have things happening in the large solution areas. That's all the architects and design work happening in there, and we have some program increments and some sprints. We have some program activity, although there's not much in there, and we have some teamwork, basically actually creating the development itself. But this particular worked example is focusing primarily on the design phase, on the large solution phase. So this is quite a good example of actually how architects basically participate and can deliver stuff within the tool. As with every time that we configure something in Q6FSA, we never actually start with the data. We always start with the context around it. So just having a look at the applications landscape here, an environments landscape. So we now basically switched across to a user that has the application architecture role. Well, we're going to just focus on one particular application here, which is the manufacturing execution system. We've laid out its structure here. So it's an operational system. So installed in the United Kingdom. It has basically an application front end that deals with electronic bills and materials and with manufacturing plans. It has a number of capabilities in terms of processes and exchanges. So it has consumers and triggers and collations and various other processes that basically it can create. So these are all the different solution features. And it also has a data store where it actually stores these things. So it stores parts and bills of materials in one module, and the plan of how to build things in another one. So over a period of about 8 weeks, we've considered all the ones in green here. So all these I think there's 10 there. Yeah, about 10 applications that basically are forming part of this overall solution. Just a quick look at the environment set up for that. So this manufacturing engineering system, it's an Oracle-based system, so it has some HTML, it has some Oracle database stuff going on, but it also deals with XML schema definitions for data interchange, and obviously the processes are some kind of PLSQL or SQL-based processes. Moving on from there, we're going to start looking at how we basically laid out the value stream here. So again, we're back in Scale Agile mode here. So we've set up this particular feature tree as into epics, enablers, and features and user stories. Set of enablers here to do with integration patterns, and then another set of enablers actually defining the requirements and architecture for the integrations themselves. So as you can see, this is pretty much normal stuff from my manufacturing system. Transferring the parts into SAP, transferring bills and materials and things like that. So this is all kind of normal stuff. In total, there was 17 integrations that we created here. And at some point, these are then built. So they're developed at some point. But this particular tool wasn't tracking those bills, it was just tracking the design process. As you can see here, we've actually got more information at the design level. So we've got priority using weighted short, choose a job first. And we have all sorts of people assigned to tasks here. But you can see that every single integration has kind of a common set of things that are going on. So it's a very repeatable process. Just a little bit more about how then that executed. All the work has been completed, but we do have some ways of actually showing how that all went. I'm just going to start that off here while I go back into the program management role. So this is the view of effectively how things were delivered. So this is the breakdown of the whole project. And as you can see, we started in around about April time, started doing things for these integrations and moving across. These are all blue because we've actually completed them all. They would be different colours which would represent whether we were actually behind or in front of time. This is the whole process down from start to finish, all nicely broken down for you. And this is the numbers pretty much when we finished everything off. So there you go, everything finishes. So you can use this tool to basically manage the whole delivery process moving forwards as it happens, and it's got some neat features that let you reprioritize pretty much on the fly, and it'll rebuild up this whole thing. And into the resource sheet, this is where we start seeing how then the people that are involved in this project actually started to were actually delivering on hours. The blue means it's completed hours. This is a completed project, so this is the way it worked. And all the resource smoothing obviously was attempting to make sure that this people weren't over allocated. So any forward tasks that basically have to be created would be that have been assigned to a person would show up here. So you can basically get to a 1 to 2 month forward, or even probably 1 to 6 month forward resource smooth view of how everything is going for this particular project. What we're looking at here is the landscape management. So how this works is whenever you create each one of these is an integration, but you actually define what objects actually are changed or amended within each of these integrations, and you can subdivide it nicely so you can actually deliver objects that are of similar style into containers and assign different people to them, so it can all break down. So this is the design tree for one of the integrations, integration 1, which is moving parts around. As you can see, it's a fairly complex one, and there's all 18 mapped out there in terms of their design. Let's have a quick look at this one. Now we're in the data acquisition layer here, so obviously we're looking at HTML web pages here. So this is the Parts Master user interface, and this is actually the overview of classification here. So these are the labels that you'll see on the screen, and these are the obligations that they fall under. So this one's just normal internal information, and this is the classification, how that all works. And for that same one, you can also start looking at the physical landscape that's affected. I'm just going to move back and see if oh yes, okay, there you go. So this is the Burndown chart, which showed, as you can see, it was quite a hefty project. There was almost 3,600 hours put in. The blue is basically how it was planned to work. The green is the actuals, and as you can see that there was actually more actuals than planned, so it was slightly overburned. And these bars here basically showed the available velocity in each of those weeks. So most of the time we were slightly under burning, but okay, but it kind of caught up in various stages. So we're back in the physical data modeler here, and you can see there's a couple of structures we're dealing with here. One which is just a very simple. It must have been a pop-up screen somewhere in there which basically says I'm going to confirm this, and there's one that actually is showing the number of parts characteristics that we're dealing with as well. So a couple of screens, but as you can see, this is the whole physical landscape that we're dealing with here. So we assign these structures to designs. The designs are then basically just assigned to component groups. Component groups are then basically placed into delivery containers, and delivery containers then are worked. So it builds up the whole change management of the solution from end to end, which is then what you can track in the program management tools. Okay, so we're going to look at some data stuff now. Before we get into the flows, let's have a quick look at the security impact dashboard. That basically, this is one's at project level. It can be at various levels of granularity, but this one is showing that we actually managed to chew through almost 3,000 columns or attributes here, and 70 of which were not worth classifying. We brought out a number of policies and obligations that basically were found there. So 99% of them are internal information. These are the labels: internal, confidential, secret, and the percentages. And then the ones that are to have an obligation, basically what those obligations were. So we've got some export control stuff there and some UK data protection implications. And then we have the business things that were the business concepts that were then identified as being tipping those obligations. So we had an author mentioned 9 times, we had a buyer mentioned 22 times, we had some free format comments that we couldn't determine what was in them. We have export control flagged 4 times. We have user definable values a couple of times, and usernames 31 times. So that's basically your scope of risk. So let's now have a look at one of the flows that we created. So this particular one is actually dealing with revisions of during the assembly process. So we're starting off with a couple of tables and a user interface that basically manages the production orders. This is how it kind of all links together now. And then we're hopping across, we're orchestrating a payload. We're then creating a provider interface, which is now an XSD. So we've gone from Oracle to XSD now. That's then fired across to a consumer on an internal service bus. That's basically then created a pass-through. That's then fired across to Delbumi. Delbumi has then detected various signals within that, created a number of payloads, and then basically fired that, triggered that into SAP down here. So we're now in SAP, and SAP has then basically gone and orchestrated that and saved it into the SAP tables. Let's have a look at one of these. So we're in SAP world here now. We're going to have a look at this is the logical configuration of that particular object. So these are things that are involved. So it's got an assembly operation sequence, it's got a status, it's got a warning, a production order. We can then drill down into the physical world here as well now. This one is not T-SQL, it is ABAP. These standard implementations are, in theory, what we'd like them to let the things look like. As you can see, we can define a standard format for everything, and entirely what it means it isn't actually named in the right way, or it's not standard. But we're now down in the physical world now, so because this is SAP, we're basically talking about SAP types. If it was Oracle, it'll be Oracle. If it was SQL Server, it'll be SQL Server. If it was XML, it'll be strings and decimals. And obviously we've got the semantics and the meaning stuff in there as well. If we were designing forwards, if we were basically building the system from scratch, which is pretty much what we did. In fact, this whole process probably would take about 2 weeks if we'd have been reverse engineering it. It was hand cranked. But if you're architecting forwards, you would basically use the business concepts and then basically go to the standard definitions and then build things from that, so everything lines up. And if you're manually creating things, finding a new thing to add is as simple as looking for what we've got in there. So if you want to add a component to that, say. If you wanted to add the component batch number, there you go, it's in. It would have been if I'd have hit the right button. Okay, that's my demo gremlin of the day. Oh no, it was that component batch number. I'm being stupid. There it is. It's a reusable structure. I'm just going to remove that now. Okay, so that's while we're looking at that, while I was rebuilding, just going to have a quick look at the search features here. So this is basically a repository search that you can do. Pretty much every user has this. I'm looking for the classic material master subtable called Mark, and this is all the information that we know about it. So all the column names, what the things mean, and the types. This is the classification. You can see it's actually picked up basically that we actually have a couple of personal data things in there, so to the author and the purchasing buyer. There's a user ID attached to that. This is the FSA classification, which is basically showing you all the verbs and nouns that are make up that particular field concept. This is what the logical structure looks like. And you can see this is how it lays out these compound fields, where a column actually is broken down into its verbs and nouns. It makes interoperability much more granular. And this effectively is a project that it's a design that it's basically included in. So you can get a good idea of basically what's happening to any particular object. I'm just having a look at another one now, another famous SAP table called Mara. We also have the ability to actually go backwards in time as well, because there may well have been changes here. So if as you can see here, there's a history of additions, deletions. So if we look at this one, there'll be differences basically between the two. It may well be a difference in lengths or things like that, but there's a whole version control and history behind this. Now these flows, in theory, if you actually hit the print button, you can print these things to PDF and hang them on the wall. And this is the flow described in terms of its sequence. So sequence 1 sends production order user interface to application entity, and basically this is how you go through the whole process. There's 34 moving parts in this particular flow, and if it's flown across integrations, then you can set a pattern as well. So we're going basically from this one to this one via ActiveMQ. We're going to this one via IBMMQ. We're going to this one via a SAP RPC BAPI call, getting a stateful response. And you can delve further into here by actually looking at the how that particular hop is mapped together. So this is the Pro interface coming from Del Boomi. As you can see, this is an XML speak, and then this is then going across to the BAPI, which is we're now basically in SAP speak. So we've gone from XML notation to SAP notation. And there's various different styles we can do here. For example, click on that. So if there's things like default values, you can put that in there, whether it's a join or an action or a mapping. See, there's quite a few things you can do here, and you can add things in to differentiate there. It's not a fixed list, but the things are fixed list in this tool. And there's some additional notes in there as well, so it's quite a nice way of building up your knowledge about how this whole thing works. So we're describing this whole process from end to end. This particular process, you can see sort of scale of work that we managed to do in just a few short weeks here. So here are all the engineering models that we've created. So user interfaces, database things, providers. What's that? That's a trigger, a collator, a consumer. That one's a validation. That one's some kind of orchestration. Things within the manufacturing domain, things within the accounting and finance, material requirements planning, purchasing, sales, work scheduling, taxation, production, all these nice stuff. And these last four are the journeys that we're basically showing us as well. So, moving parts around, moving assembly plans around between systems, moving production orders and working them from start to finish. That's a fairly huge flow with almost 150 moving parts in that one, and also doing some of the procure to pay stuff as well. So quality management and dealing with that sort of stuff. So we've achieved a lot in a very short period of time. So just checking through where I've got to. So that's done. That's done. That's done. And that's done. So that's the end of the work example. So I hope you've enjoyed watching that, and we'll bring some more examples to you very soon.